Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff, former councillor. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council to order. We will begin with the singing of the national anthem, and I would ask all who are able to rise. And Councillor Papp will lead us.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Councillor Papp. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. First, we have some preliminaries to do before we get into the Christmas cards. So it has been moved by Councillor Rybak, seconded by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the agenda for the December 5th, 2016 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is what's called disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is any conflicts of interest that any members of council may have. Do any members of council have any conflicts of interest? Okay, there are none. Can that be so noted in our minutes? I would ask the deputy mayor to assist me. There you go. Thank you, Councillor King. So as I mentioned before the meeting started, we had an amazing array of submissions for our Christmas cards this year. It was very, very, very difficult to choose between them. And as you'll see when you do get these, and you'll be presented with some of them that you can share with family and friends, the work, the effort, the exceptional artistry of our students is just outstanding. So the idea was home for the holidays, and there's different home themes here, and so it's absolutely wonderful. These cards will be sent to people that have connections. I'm going to be writing different Christmas greetings, holiday greetings to people that have connections with the town. They include, of course, the mayors of Niagara and the regional councillors and others, business owners in Pelham, etc. But also the Prime Minister and the Lieutenant Governor and the Premier and various ministers in the province. So this card will go far afield. In fact, a quick story, when I sent one a few years ago to the Lieutenant Governor David Onley, and I wrote a little handwritten note in the bottom and said, we'd love to welcome you sometime, please come and visit in the town, and he did come and visit. So they are well read and well received. So it's very special and very important that you've shared your artwork with us. So thank you. So Councillor King, what I'd ask you to do perhaps is maybe as each recipient comes up, if you could give them one of those. And as I mentioned, there's a little treat inside, or a couple treats inside along with cards. And let's start on this. So Laura Schaefer. There she is. A little bird here on a nose of the snowman, and that's the front cover of the card. So congratulations to you. Thank you very much. Maybe you can take it back, and then when I get everybody else up, we'll have a picture, and you just bring your certificate or something. Okay. Thank you. Congratulations. All right. Now this is on the back cover, Emma Nye. here it goes. It's a beautiful, beautiful scene here. Moving the Canada flag there for Canada's 150th. So it's beautiful. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Also on the back cover, I believe, yes, Abigail Thibodeau. One wasn't able to be here, so that means so here's what Abigail's is. It's a dog walking through the snow. She even included the town logo on that. So very, very creative. So congratulations.
It's my dog. It's my dog.
Councillor Papp thinks that's his dog. I don't know. Casey. And then on the inside, we have several included on the inside. Maddie Morrison. So here's Maddie's. She's got Rudolph and the sleigh there. Rudolph's on the roof, and Santa's just about to land. So very, very good. What's that saying on the bottom house? Memories to remember, right? Yeah.
They're hired.
Congratulations.
I like this one.
Yeah, it's nice, eh?
That's very different.
Thank you. I'm supposed to be showing you guys. Here's one. This is for Amelia Slokowski, and this is a. Kind of came off here. Maybe Councillor King can fix that. Congratulations. Thank you. Gwen Farrell. Fireplace with some stockings and a beautiful Christmas tree, lots of presents under it. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Sarah Snellgrove. Because Sarah has the arches in there, plus all of the lights, and it says "Welcome to Fawn Hill" and a bunch of presents on the ground. So congratulations, and she even got the themer. I'll be home for the holidays, home for Christmas. So congratulations, thank you. I might get your name a little wrong. I'm sorry, Julia Woonert. Julia, how do you say that? She has a figure skate? No, well, beautiful figure skater there. I think you did a great rendition, and some trees and a pond, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It makes us think of being outside in beautiful weather, so congratulations and thank you very much. Jaden Peltier. Houses here, and she's got Santa up there, and Christmas tree, etc. So very, very nice. So we'll make sure that she gets that. Pardon?
She must be upset.
Yes. Ashley Goji? How do you say it? Godey. Ashley Godey. So she has, I'll be home for Christmas. Look at how busy and active that is. Spent a lot of time putting us together. All the activities that go on at Christmas. It's wonderful, so thank you very much. Congratulations, thank you. India Valley. Thank you very much. She's got the fireplace and I love puppies. She's got a little thing here. Beautiful, very beautiful. So congratulations and thank you very much. And last but not least, Miranda Hartley. Miranda has this beautiful tree. She's got Rudolph there and Santa on the ground and all of the presents, and it says Pelham welcomes you. Very wonderful. So thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. So thanks very much. Can we have the children come up again with just maybe the certificate, and you can hold them and Wayne can do a photo?
They sucked yesterday.
Who's gonna go right in the middle?
Good plan. Good plan.
All people in the back. Wayne will organize this.
Yeah, we're gonna get the little ones in the front. Everybody kind of come in tight. A little more. If you want to come around to the front. There. Over this way. There we go. Okay. All right, that's it. Oh, great, everybody. Okay, smile. I'll get a couple more here, just. Yeah, one last one. Here, everybody smile. Here's your chance to put a big hit. Good.
All right, thanks, Wayne. And there's Dean. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's give him a round of applause.
That's it, that's it.
Oh, we got a couple of grandparents here. You guys can move up if you want. Don't be scared. This is your chamber. Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. Let's give another round of applause. Thank you very much. You're welcome to come back anytime, but I understand why you're leaving as well. So thank you very much for coming.
We all do.
Merry Christmas to you.
We all do. Maybe we could act like parents.
That it? Meeting adjourned?
Yeah, this kind of, it flips out. Big game on
How are they?
The thing was, she was already in pain, so
It might have been midfield.
Yeah. Yep. Good idea. Yeah, we can put them up on the main stage. Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's crazy.
Why don't we do something like this for summer fest? That's all the schools before the school year is done. The kids just could depict summer fest and display them in the park. Put it down. Perfect. I'll bring it to committee. Some brains up there.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I
We're
got
just
it.
gonna continue with the meeting. Take care. Happy holidays. All the best. Thank you. That's great. Very wonderfully talented children in our community, so congratulations to them and thank you very much. Let's continue with the rest of the meeting. So it has been moved by Councillor Junkin, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that the minutes of the December 5th, 2016 meeting be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Are there any errors or omissions in those minutes? No. There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next, we have consent agenda items for block approval. Are there any items that members of council would like to lift for separate consideration? Earlier, are you signaling? No?
No, just get my pen.
Can we lift 941 regarding the pedestrian access?
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Okay.
For the-
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering, what is the proposed action on 9.4.2 and 9.5.1? Is it to support and endorse?
9.4.2, it is to support and endorse that motion.
And 9.5.1?
And 951,
That's an information.
That was just simply to receive.
Receive, I'll lift that then, Mr.
You'll
Mayor.
lift that one? Okay.
What, 9.5.1? Yep.
Okay. So you're not lifting 942?
No,
which
if
is
it's
the
support
federal-
and endorse,
yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Okay, great. So what has been lifted is the letter that we received regarding pedestrian access by A. Bowles, which is 941, and we've also lifted 951, which is regarding a private member's bill ending unfair taxation to family business transfers. Anything else? Oh, Councilor Duncan?
Yes, 9.3.3.
Bridge and culvert replacement report. So the report is to receive it, or the recommendation is receive it for information. You want to do something separate from that?
No, I just thought maybe we should discuss it.
We can discuss it,
Can we?
certainly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So, Let's lift it for separate consideration. 933, we'll lift it for separate consideration. Okay? We actually have some staff here and an expert. So it has been, anything else? Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Papp. Be it resolved, the following consent agenda items be received, and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. Presentation of recommendations arising from the Policy and Priorities Committee meeting of November 21st, 2016, and the minutes of that meeting of November 1st. We have staff reports of a routine nature for information or action. We have the 2016 third quarter revenue and expenditure report, and the resolution is that be received for information. We also have the 2016 third quarter capital project update, and that motion is to receive for information. Those items were left over from our committee meeting last time we met. Councillor Junkins lifted the bridge and culvert replacement. So we do have the Pelham Community Center Oversight Committee meeting of November 2016, their financial report, and that recommendation is to receive for information. We did lift that one item regarding access to the new grocery store, but we do have a resolution regarding from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario regarding federal infrastructure phase 2 incremental resolution. And the resolution that we're to approve is that the town of Pelham calls on the federal government to provide long-term, predictable, and formula-based funding in its phase 2 programs for municipal governments, and also that the town of Pelham calls on the federal government to change incremental requirements in phase 2 to recognize in Ontario that a municipal government's asset management plan meets a municipal incremental infrastructure requirement, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. There's two items for information correspondence items. One is the Township of North Frontenac, and it's requesting support for Ontario's electrical bills. And the other is information on the town of Pelham's 2017 allocation for the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, $7,700. There's a letter from the region of Niagara and a resolution. Be it resolved, the council received the motion dated September 20th, 2016 from Niagara Region regarding the ban of asbestos, and that council endorse and support the motion. And then there's some committee minutes for information, and they include the Pelham Active Transportation Committee of October 18th, the Pelham Library Board minutes of October 26th, and the Community Center Oversight Committee minutes, both of their meetings of September 7th and October 19th. Any comments or questions on any of those items under the consent agenda? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's with reference to the third quarter revenue and expenditure reports. Specifically, the department that I was looking at was transportation. And it raised a little bit of concern when I look at the salary and benefit lines when we're getting down into the single digit after the third quarter. I've done some calculations, and I know they're probably not entirely valid, but when I look at the total expenditure and the salary and benefit line, we're left at the end of the third quarter with $85,000. and our burn rate is something like 164,000 a month, leaving by projection a shortfall of somewhere around $406,000. So I just wondered if the director could comment on how she proposes to manage that, maybe comment on how we got into that state, and if we can anticipate that we'll be over budget, and so that we can make plans to deal with it if we need to.
Okay, thank you. Madam Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I cannot comment. I don't have any background information on this at this point. This hasn't been reviewed at this time, so perhaps Treasurer might be able to comment some more.
Madam Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's through the explanation notes. The salaries are higher than projected due to changes, unplanned overtime requirements, and organizational changes. There has been a slight increase in revenues to help offset some of the organizational changes. That is the extent of the information that we have in the finance department.
Okay, perhaps it's something, it sounds like the director doesn't have the answer to your question.
Bring it back.
Councillor Kersey, maybe it's something that the director can
That'd be great,
bring
Mr.
back
Mayor.
to council.
If we can.
I note that there is some comment later in her committee report, so perhaps that's part of the answer, but we can bring that back, have staff bring that back.
Okay, so maybe before we adopt this, we refer it back and ask staff to bring forward a comment, a report, and maybe the treasurer and the director can get together and work this matter out.
Councillor Kersey, we're simply receiving this. Do you still want to receive it with additional information?
Well, I want to receive, I guess we could receive it, but I think it's important that we get that answered before the end of the year. So however you think we should manage that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. We could lift it and send it back and then get the information perhaps at that time, or we could simply receive it.
So
We
if
could
we
receive it and ask for staff direction is
That-
probably the best way to deal
That
with
suits
it.
me fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
Yep,
you.
Yep.
Anyone else on that? Okay, so Councillor Papp?
Just quickly picking up on Councillor Kersey, then we can expect a response and clarification at our next council meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Thank you. The CAO has indicated that is the case. All right, thank you very much. So, Madam Clerk, you'll note that in the action items. Thank you. Any other items under the consent agenda? There being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Let's start with 933, the bridge and culvert replacement. The motion has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp, to receive it for information. Councillor Junkin lifted it. Councillor Junkin.
Yes,
And we do have some resources here.
Yep, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could ask the Director of Public Works, on this report, the cost of the bridge replacements are pegged at around $762, and I was just wondering what circumstances were different or are going to be different for the 762 bridge as opposed to the bridge we just built on Sawmill Road, which was, I don't think we ever got the final report on that, but it was right around $1 million. I was just wondering what the difference on those two prices would be, if you could.
Thanks. Ms. Clemencio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the numbers in front of me, the comparison for Sawmill. We might be able to get some more clarification from our guests if that could be allowed, or give me a few minutes. I'm going to guesstimate that it was, it's likely based on scale and span of the bridge, but if that could be allowed, we might be able to get.
Sure,
some
if you could
clarification.
introduce.
Sure, we
Who's
have,
here?
we have staff here as well, Derek Young
Young.
from the engineering group, and we have John Paul Danko from Ellis Engineering, which is the bridge engineering consulting group that did the design and contract administration for the Sawmill Bridge, and also did the culvert and bridge inspection report this year.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name? Danko, D-A-N-K. Danko, would you like to address council, and if you have the answer to the question, Mr. Danko?
The question was the difference in cost between the estimate for the 750,000 replacement structure in the report versus the cost, the as-built cost for Sawmill, correct?
Yes.
So the bridge at Sawmill is a larger structure. I think the total span was a 10-meter replacement. versus the replacement structure for this report is a smaller bridge. They're two 3.8 meter spans, so about an 8 meter in total. As well as at Sawmill, we had some bad soils that had to be excavated, so it was a bit of a unique case. Whereas the cost estimate for Maple Street was based on our best engineering judgment for that site. So there's a couple externalities at Sawmill that made that particular site a little bit more expensive than what this one would be.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Danko. Counselor?
But at the same time, the Sawmill location was 2 culverts.
Yes.
And I believe Maple Street is also the same 2 culverts.
Sawmill was a slightly larger structure. It was a 10 meter total span. So the original culverts, the 2 soil steel structures.
Yes.
I believe the original ones were 5 meter span.
Okay.
Times 2.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions regarding the report? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who to address this to. Perhaps our expert could comment. I have a couple of questions. The first question is, when I did a little bit of research, well, the report asks us to make a decision whether we would support a culvert versus a bridge. And it seems that the majority of the decision is based around dollars and cents. When I did some research, there are some scientific papers whereby there are formulas that you can apply the various circumstances of that bridge or that culvert and grind it through the formula, and it'll actually come up with a determination of what is the most appropriate way of doing that. Are you familiar with that?
And if not, just tell us what you go through to recommend to municipalities what is the best option. Thanks,
Right.
Mr. Danko.
I think you have to keep in mind that every site is unique. I mean, bridges, they all kind of look the same, but the specifics of each site is unique to that structure. So the process that we would go through to determine what type of replacement structure is all governed by So the bridge code is very specific about the design of the structure and the lifespan and such. So that's, for us, that's our starting point. And then in particular, a specific structure for each site, we would look at what we've done in the past. Typically, that would be a concrete replacement structure. I mean, in the last 20 years or so, I don't think we've done a single soil steel structure as a new build, except for one for Walker Industries. So sort of the industry standard would be, a concrete bridge, and that's what we would, that would be sort of our starting point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kersey?
When I looked at the Canadian Highway Design Code, it appears that it breaks the bridges down based on traffic load. But then at the end of the day, opts and says, well, we'll make the assumption that they're all Bridge A's and they have to be, based on that. And it's based on a 75-year life expectancy. But we all know that there are many circumstances, particularly in rural roads, where you might get 5 or 6 or 10 cars a day, and yet you're going to spend $1 million versus doing a culvert where you might spend half of that. So, the bang for the dollar is something that we as councillors have to try and balance.
Right.
So could you comment on that for me, please?
Thank you. Mr. Danko?
I certainly understand the concern. I mean, especially in rural areas, there are lots of structures that have very low usage. But from a structural design standpoint, by the code, we have to design to the standards that's in the bridge code, which is a full-size transport truck. And that's just, unfortunately for, some of the rural sites that aren't as well used, that's still the design that we have to follow.
Yeah, I think one of the culverts that's coming up is 53 vehicles a day is sort of the average versus some of the others that are hundreds or 1,000 or whatever. Councillor?
But having said that, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, but having said what you've said, why is it that within the act or the code, it says unless otherwise decided? So it almost implies that the community in and of itself could make that decision based on the unique circumstances within the community.
You're referring to the design life?
Yeah, it's the design life. yeah.
Right. So in that particular clause, the bridge code was updated, I think it was 2000, where they changed the design life from a 50-year design life to a 75-year design life. So that's sort of a holdover from the older version of the code where you could design to a 50-year. Now it does give the owner, who would be the municipality in this case, the leeway to decide if, you know, for whatever reason, if you didn't choose to put in a 75-year design life, that would be up to you to choose what structure you're going to put in. Because at the end of the day, I mean, the municipality's the owner that's paying for it, and at that point, it's not a safety issue. It has to do with the dollars and cents.
So, just to build on that, what then governs that, and does one have to, let's say we're to say to build it to a different standard, would we have to mark the road that at certain ends, or?
We're just talking about design life, not the loading. So
Okay.
we're not talking about the structural design. We're only talking about the design life. And really, the only structure that has a design life that's less than 75 years is the soil steel, galvanized steel culvert. So, no, you wouldn't mark that. It wouldn't have anything to do with the structural design. It would just be that there's a special consideration that you have to consciously know that you're being or you're installing a structure that wouldn't meet that 75-year design life that all the other structures would normally meet.
Okay, thank you for the clarity, I appreciate that. Other questions from members of council? Councillor Junkin?
You go through some municipalities and they actually have the weight restrictions on the bridge. Is that an option on a road that's only got 53 traffic? Can you build a bridge and then put a weight restriction on that bridge?
We can't design a new bridge for anything less than the design load that's in the code. So where you see a load limit, that would be an evaluation for an existing structure. So they allow you, when it's an existing structure and it's deteriorating, you can analyze that structurally and decide what that bridge can safely carry and then post that. But for a new structure, no, you can't build a new structure with a posting.
So when we see this, the bridges with the weight restrictions, when that span is over, they will have to bring that up to your tractor trailer code.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kersey for another time?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure, did you prepare the estimate with respect to the soil multi-plate galvanized culvert as well?
Yes.
Is it normal to include a 20% contingency and a 15% engineering design factor?
Thank you.
The 20% design contingency is because this would be a preliminary design. We don't have geotech for that location.
I see.
Some of the geometry is a little bit unknown.
I see.
So that gives you a little bit of a buffer for some of the unknowns that come up in the detailed design. And as far as the engineering and administration, 15% is usually about the industry standard. But that would be something that you would put out to tender for design that,
Okay.
you know, you would get an actual price for that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Clemencio wants to comment?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to clarify that for the cost estimates for today and for the 20-year capital plan, we did adjust the contingency amount down to 10% based on the budgetary direction for this year. So although the preliminary estimate came from Alice Engineering with a 20% allowance, that would probably be an attachment. The adjusted number for the capital plan was put to 10%.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
thank
yes, I
you.
do see that.
Okay.
I do see that. Thank you.
Any others? Ms. Clemencio or Mr. Danko, are these essentially, we're comparing sort of apples to apples here on these bridges? And so if we were to look at the pricing, that's how it's presented, or that's how I read it? the idea of doing the 600 and, let's say, 20,000 versus the 763,000. Is that an apples to apples?
Generally, yes. There are some differences. For the 750,000 option, that would be a single span. So with a single span structure, it has a bit better hydraulic flow. You don't have debris that would accumulate with that, when you have that center support. And it's also an open footing option. So where you have an open footing, you have a creek bed that's not constrained, so it's environmentally more friendly. So there are some additional benefits to spending that extra money.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing I'll say is thank you for the pictures, Ms. Clemencio. There was a lot of discussion about what about Chandler Road, et cetera. So to compare, it is apples and oranges, and there are bananas really in that case, because there's quite a huge difference between the size of the culverts. One is this big and the other is quite large. So, and that's what we're talking about here, 3.8 meters. So thank you very much for that. Councillor Junkin, did you have one more? No?
He answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. I think the motion is to receive unless there's something else. We certainly appreciate your expert advice and assistance, Mr. Danko. And so let me call the question on the motion to receive. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And thanks again, Ms. Clemencio and Mr. Young for putting that together, and Mr. Danko. Now let's move on to another item of action correspondence of routine nature, and that is regarding the pedestrian access at Food Basics. And maybe I lifted this one in, I thought it was just to receive, so there is another item here for action, and the motion is moved by Councillor Kirsty, second by Councillor Papp. The council received the correspondence from Alan Bowes regarding consideration of improvements to pedestrian access on area north of Regional Road 20 to the new business area in the East Fawn Hill developments on the south side of Regional Road 20, and that the matter be referred to staff for investigation and report back to council outlining feasibility options and potential budgetary implications. I thought it was only to receive, so I'm very happy with that motion. Anything further? Councillor Rubiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you hadn't lifted it, I would have. I have just a couple of questions.
Okay, please.
Talks about a path. So just for clarification, this is an official path. I take it something that the town owns, constructed, intends people to use. I see nodding of the heads, so I'm assuming the answer is yes.
There's a bit of history on that path. Councillor Papp and Durley and I will remember that history, maybe Ms. Clemencio. It is next to the pumping station, I believe. This is the path that he's talking about, next to the pumping station on Hurricane. And I think what he's suggesting is that there be some sort of path from the Steve Bauer Trail then to the other development. Thanks again, Mr. Danko.
Fair enough. So the answer is yes, it's an official path, the town owns it. The letter made reference to a resident-built bridge. So my
Yes.
question is with regard to why a resident-built bridge is allowed to be on a town path. Do we have liabilities? Are we comfortable with that? I wonder if someone can answer that.
Can someone answer that? Ms. Clemencio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as far as I understand, the bridge part that they're talking about is on private property. I haven't visited this site, so I'm not certain, but that's what was indicated to me when we first had this correspondence come in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd want to be careful that what's referred to as a resident-built bridge is actually on private property and not on our public property, leaving us with whatever liabilities and issues that, of maintenance and others that might arise from that. So I don't know what I need to do with regard to accepting the motion, but I would like to have clarification on that before we go much further.
I think the motion is that this be referred to staff for investigation and report, and no doubt in that report,
Good.
there'll be some
I'm happy
information
with
about
that,
that.
too.
I think this is one of those cases of residents from the Hurricane, Stonegate area, et cetera, like to travel across public lands and then some private lands, perhaps hop over a ditch and somebody put a quote-unquote bridge there, and there we are, so.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern was that, at least in the context in which that was referred, it sounded like people thought it was on the actual path that we owned, and I just wanted clarification
Okay.
on that.
And
So
we'll-
I'm happy with the motion to investigate, and I hope that the report addresses that issue as well.
All right, thank you. Any others? So let me call the question on that item. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And then to the last item, the motion here was to receive for information. Councillor Kersey, you pulled it for separate consideration?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issues that are raised by Monsieur Caron and his private members bill point out a discrepancy in taxation on small business and the transfer of small business among family members. Currently being treated as a dividend, which is taxed at a higher rate than if it were treated as a capital gain. So in other words, Mr. Mayor, if you had a business and you were to sell your business at large, it would get a more favorable tax treatment than if you were to sell it to your son. So I think that disparity needs to be addressed, and Mr. Caron in his private members bill raises this issue. So I would ask that we pass a motion that we would send a letter to the Prime Minister and to the Minister of Finance for Canada, supporting Mr. Caron's BC 274 and the information that's put forward within that bill.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Papp? Would you want to circulate that to anybody else? So other local municipalities, or I was thinking more like the Chamber of Commerce?
All the chambers.
I think that'd be good. Perhaps
The
the
Pelham Business
the other
Association.
businesses and the business associations.
Okay.
I think that'd be great, Mr. Mayor. Thanks. Great
Councillor Papp,
suggestion.
do you want to speak to it? Thank you.
And just quickly, and also,
Local MPs as well.
right, and I would ask that if you could, we haven't done this too often, but send it to the Niagara Bar Association, who deals with taxation.
Okay.
There are people there that would be very interested in seeing this.
Okay. They may have a different name. They
may have a different name.
The Lawyers
Yeah.
Association. Okay.
And you may get also support, if I may add, if, I'll find out the local accounting associations, the CA firms who deal with this every year. They would be probably very supportive of this.
Yeah, yeah, that's good suggestion.
I don't know if there's a,
There is a formal, I don't know what, there's a South Niagara,
perhaps
there's a North
sending
Niagara.
sending it to the Chamber of Commerce, perhaps, and you
Well,
serve
maybe
on
they
that
can-
board, you can send it to
Well,
their members.
Then we'll ask them that they send it out to those associations, because the tax lawyers and the tax accounts would be very interested in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Ribbiak?
Just a quick comment that I made to myself as I read this thing. If there is that difference in treatment between selling within families and selling to third parties, it seems from the perspective of a small town like ours that it's a whole lot healthier to encourage transfer of businesses within families, because then it stays in town. There's a greater risk if it's transferred to a third party that it's for the purpose of moving or collapsing, that sort of thing. So I'm certainly going to support that and hope it gets that kind of thought as it goes through the channels.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else? How are you? You got the motion? All right, so we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. So thank you very much. And we'll thank you, Madam Clerk, for circulating those to the various bodies as well. Now we move to reports from members of council. First is my report. Speaking of chartered accounting firms, it was a pleasure to be along with Councillor Papp to welcome and congratulate Mike Root, Ryan Bissonnette, Andrew Walker, and all the staff at RBW for opening a new office in Fawn Hill. They're on Regional Road 20 at Rice Road above the Urban. It's a new firm, but the firm itself is new, but certainly The members of the firm are known members in our community, and it's very great, as I mentioned that evening, to welcome a firm of their caliber and expertise to our town. So congratulations to Mike, Ryan, and Andrew, and all of the staff. Very pleased, and you'll see the photos there, to be there with members of council, former Mayor Beamer, Mr. Nickel, the chair of the Architectural Design Advisory Committee, and Mr. Gibson, the chair of the Oversight Committee, and so many others at the groundbreaking. It was a great celebration and commemoration of a wonderful community milestone, where so many, including many local service club members, sports clubs, volunteers, town staff, and partners of the project got together to celebrate and commemorate. Thank you very much, Councillor Durley, for helping to acknowledge and thank the Architectural Design Advisory Council members for their many, many hours of dedicated work on helping advance and advise on the design of the new facility. And thank you for staff for setting up the groundbreaking both at the site and at the Legion. And the Legion had some great refreshments there as well. So a wonderful milestone in our community's history. Thank you. Thanks as well to staff who've been working very actively through many years to get us to that milestone. I was pleased that the CAO was also in the picture representing all staff, and many staff were there as well, so thank you. Very pleased to participate along with Councillor Junkin in the second annual lighting of the Christmas tree in downtown Fenwick. Bigger and better than last year, and no doubt next year will be bigger as well. And thanks very much to the fabulous Fenwick Lions for hosting. They have big ideas for next year with choir, singing, and they had great food and hot chocolate and all of that. So congratulations to the fabulous Fenwick Lions. And very pleased to head down under the arches with other members of council and community members to participate in the, I said fourth, I think it's sixth annual. Is it sixth annual? Christmas market under the arches in downtown Fawn Hill. Thanks, Ms. Van Ravensway. Thanks very much to staff for setting that up, and members of various service clubs, local businesses for helping to host this great community event. It rained a little, sprinkled a little, which actually meant that people didn't leave. They moved indoors, and they went into various restaurants and various shops, and they ate and drank and were merry, and they also purchased items. And then Ms. Van Ravensway tells me, I had gone to the turkey raffle later, but she tells me that afterwards many people came out back to the venue. So it was a great evening, and congratulations to all, and thanks very much to staff for organizing that. And finally, many, many thanks to the hundreds and hundreds of volunteers for participating in the 26th annual Pelham Food Drive. Volunteers were involved in everything again this year, and many of the service clubs stepped up to the plate to get involved. The Fenwick Lions and Fawn Hill Lions hosting, and the Kinsmen for helping to organize the routes, and volunteers running the entire event for Pelham Cares. And certainly thanks to Rice Road Greenhouses as well for being that venue, that area where people could gather and drop off the food. There was a 17-car backup, I think it was, at Rice Road Greenhouses for unloading the food. There was so much food and so much activity, and no doubt they'll try and make that a little bit smoother next year, but volunteers were very, very patient and very generous, and the community was very generous, folks knocking door to door and collecting many, many food items. So congratulations and thanks to the community for this. So that is my report. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that my report dated December 5th, 2016 be received for information. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next report is Councillor King.
Thank you,
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor. Branch 613, the Royal Canadian Army Cadet Corps, held their annual mess dinner on November the 12th. I was honored and privileged to have attended this formal affair on behalf of the Mayor and Council, and to enjoy the experience alongside the cadets of a traditional military dinner. Some of those traditions date back 100 years. I think what impressed me the most was the discipline that's displayed by the cadets. But that being said, they certainly had a lot of fun. Good time was had by all. It was a wonderful evening. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor King, for representing myself and council. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Rabiak. Be it resolved that Councillor King's verbal report regarding the Army Cadet Christmas mess dinner be received for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thanks again. Now we move to presentation consideration of staff reports requiring action. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that council receive the report investment policy and that council approve the investment policy. This was a hangover from perhaps the wrong word, but this was a report we didn't get to last meeting, so good to have it here. Questions or comments regarding the investment policy, Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our treasurer. I like the policy. It is very comprehensive. I just wondered whether you felt the wording was sufficient to cover further amendments to the act. They are considering some amendments at this time, and I wondered if the wording would save it coming back here. That's all.
Thank you,
Through
Madam Treasurer.
Mr. Mayor, yes, we will be covered because the policy quotes the regulation, and that regulation as amended would be brought forward and adjusted in the policy once the third reading of the municipal act changes have occurred. Many of the investment firms that have submitted proposals, which we are going to be reviewing this week, are aware that there's changes coming to the municipal act and are on top of that already at this time.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
I'm good.
Any others? Certainly appreciate the policy being, did you have something else? Yeah, Councillor Powell?
No, I was very, very pleased with this, and also noting the fact that once you review the proposals back for investment, I like the fact that invest in shares and equities of Canadian corporations. I was there many years ago on the other side of the fence where there were bad investments made, and municipalities lost a ton of money simply because they were drawn by the high rate, interest rate and that. And this is certainly, as you recall, there was major problems. So I'm looking forward to it. Congratulations, Madam Treasurer. This is going to really help us in the long run, and I am very pleased with this.
Thank you, Councillor. Any others? Are you ready for calling the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Look forward to hearing the results of that going out to market as well. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King. Be it resolved, the council receives the report, municipal grant policy options, and direct staff to develop a hybrid municipal grant policy that, 1, provides an application process for in-kind contributions and only up to $2,500 per applicant. 2, provides a discretionary fund for council in the amount of $20,000 to distribute grant funding per request. And 3, provides an application process for in-kind labor assistance for significant community events. Questions or comments? Councillor Papp, did you want to start that off?
Sure. First of all, this is perfect. I think this is what we were looking for, at least in my, and I'll take it at a higher level. We as municipalities have a social responsibility to ensure that those that are in need and disadvantaged, that we still continue to work towards helping them. This balances it off and in fact mirrors what other foundations do. And we're very familiar, and I'm very, very pleased that we've gone this route to allow us that flexibility and resilience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Others? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. Madam Treasurer, so one of your how might we statements says that these could not be used for operational.
Right.
So such things as security, electrical, SOCAN fees, any of those sort of things
Right.
would not be included in in-kind service.
Madam Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct. From the last council meeting that we discussed what council was looking for in this municipal grant policy was that we were not giving cash for operational expenses. So what we did was I sat with the Director of Culture and Wellness as well because very familiar with this process. We determined that it would only be in kind for waiving of fees or in kind for Operational expenses, for instance, we do use one baseball diamond in the facility or the community that is operated by another organization. So that in-kind contribution would be allowed to come through as a grant request. However, if they are looking to book a room for an association dinner, that they are just having a social event, we would look at that as not being a part of a charitable or service provided organization event that is to discuss what they're going to be doing in the future to help other communities or other individuals in the community. So we've taken all of that stuff out of the whole grant application process and made it just about waiving of fees for these events that they're planning, and also then allowing for the reimbursement of fees for facilities that we might need to use to run our programming that we have going on in the town. So this is kind of just taking it to the bare minimum. There's no more cash contributions in this regard.
Thank you.
Perhaps your last statement answered my next question, which was, you've allowed a fund, or you're proposing to allow a fund of $20,000 to be used at council's discretion throughout the year. Those also are in kind only, not cash.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. It is for those that did not meet the application process. Something's come up through the year and council wants the discretion to decide if they're going to fund that through an in-kind contribution.
Okay.
I think that should be clarified in the motion.
Yeah.
It just says provides a discretionary fund. It should be a discretionary in-kind fund, if that's the will of council.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I apologize for that. I noticed that after the fact. It will be in the policy that it would be in-kind only.
And lastly, Mr. Mayor, if I may, this policy has really no impact on municipal events such as Summerfest, Canada Day, that sort of thing, where they would be operating under a different budget and come specifically for a very specific amount of money or what have you. Is that correct?
Councillor, can you just clarify, what do you mean by that? That if, for
Well-
example, with Summerfest, some of the service clubs help us with
You get money from us.
on the Saturday night, and then they get funds out of that. It's nothing to do with this? Is that essentially what your question is?
Well, no, that, like, for example, Summerfest does rely, for example, on services from town staff for setup and
Right.
things like that. That are not necessarily reflected in the $15,000 grant that we get. So I just wanted to ensure that that was exclusive of that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it would be exclusive totally from that. This is just about the organization groups coming to us for assistance with in-kind waiving of fees or in-kind labor assistance through their, what we call their significant events. So Santa Claus Parade in Fenwick, if that doesn't happen, I think the community would look to us to say, we want that parade still to happen. So if we can assist them in making that happen, then it reduces the expenses out of the town's pocket.
Thank you.
No, that helps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Durling?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommended solution says that we're going to direct staff to develop this. Will it come back to us to see it before it is actually in place?
Madam Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we're currently working on it. We'll bring it to policy and priority on the 19th.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Rubbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some further clarification, if possible, with regard to the discretionary fund available to council. I think we've just said it's in kind. So just for clarification, if indeed we are met with a request for funds, not in kind, but cash, as we have been in the past, and I think we are still in the process of supporting a program around some screening, medical screening equipment into the Welland Hospital. Does that mean that well, what does it mean? Does it mean that we won't do it, or does it mean that we would be making a decision around that separate and apart from this policy?
Madam Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, from the conversation that we had at council a couple council meetings ago, it was clear and evident to me that council did not want to do cash contributions to charitable organizations anymore through this policy. So if there is someone that provides a request for a delegation that is outside of the policy, it would be up to the clerk to decide if that delegation needs to come forward. But if it's coming through the policy or the 3 different hybrid situations, then our response would be that we do not offer cash contributions to the organizations as a result of this policy.
And can you speak to that gift to Niagara Health.
The
or
Niagara,
whatever it's
the
called.
One
I forget what it's called,
Foundation.
One Foundation.
Yes,
okay.
at first it was to the Welland Hospital for the first couple of years. There is 2 more years left on that gift contribution. It was not included in the monetary value that is associated with this policy because it was outside of the policy in the first place. So 40,000 is what our current municipal grant policy encompasses. So 20,000 has been set aside for that first hybrid. The second hybrid of 20,000 for council's discretion.
And then the other 20 annually for 5 years is outside of that, I think
It's
is what the
outside of that,
councilor's
it's not
question is.
included in this
Okay,
policy.
thank you. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that clarification. So what I'm hearing is that if someone did come forward, or we came to know as a council of some cause that was sufficiently important to us as council to want to support financially, we would be doing that outside this policy. It's not that it's impossible, it's just that it would be outside of this
Through you,
policy.
Mr. Mayor, absolutely. That would be up to council's discretion at that time.
It's up to us. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any others? So I wonder if we might make 2 amendments to the recommendation. I think just to clarify it, so the one I'd said already, so under point number 2, provides a discretionary in-kind fund. It says to council, we'll have to figure out the wording. It really should be in the amount of $20,000 for council to distribute. Right? In the amount of $20,000 for council to distribute as needed, I guess. The second change is under number 1. It says provides an application process for in-kind contributions only up to $2,500 per applicant. I wondered if we wanted to put that maximum on there, up to a maximum of $20,000. And is there a rationale why you didn't include that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is in the policy. I apologize for that, but it is in the policy. The first hybrid is up to $20,000. It's in the policy. We're just trying to make sure that the wording doesn't indicate to them that they have a grant application up to $20,000. So we are, like, every application is up to $2,500 to a maximum of $20,000 contribution from the town. So
I'd like to
that
put
can-
it in just to
yeah.
clarify it. Okay, so the mover is Councilor Durley and Councilor King. Can we?
Aye.
So to a maximum town contract, however the treasurer phrased it. Commitment of $20,000. So to a maximum town commitment of $20,000. Okay?
Yeah, program.
Should we move those amendments? You're comfortable as sort of friendly amendments? Maybe we'll move the amendments. I'll call the question on the amendments. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. So the motion as amended, any further comments? There being none, I call the question as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried, and we look forward to that policy coming back to us at our next meeting. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councilor Ribbiak, seconded by Councilor King. Be it resolved, the council receive the report bulk water station land purchase, and the council approve the purchase of 294 Camborough Road, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the offer of sale and purchase. Questions or comments regarding this report? Question, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, now we move to bylaws. Do I have to read all of this, Ms. Weens?
I move the bylaw.
Been moved by Councilor Ribbiak, second by Councilor King. Be it resolved, the council of the town of Pelham having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do not read a first, second, and third time and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. I do have to read all of this?
You can just read the bylaw number, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I can just read the bylaw number, okay. Bylaw 3810-2016, and it's regarding, I'll précis it for members of the public. It's quite large here. Being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 1136 as amended for lands located south of Port Robinson Road and west of Rice Road from agricultural
to site-specific residential and various other things there, including some open space, some multi-residential, withholding provision, et cetera, and that is for Hurt Inc. and Hummel Properties Inc., file number AM11-2014. And the next one is bylaw 3811, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 3720-2016 and amend zoning bylaw 1136 as amended for lands located on the south side of Port Robinson Road and west of Rice Road, municipally known as 166 Port Robinson Road, from agricultural zone to a site-specific multi-residential 1 zone to a site-specific multi-residential RM1 274 zone, and that's Hummel Properties. Questions or comments? We dealt with the report last meeting, and these are the bylaws, and thank you to staff for giving them to us in 2 different bylaws. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We do have some in camera, so as is our normal practice, it's been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey. Be it resolved, the council recess the in-camera portion of the meeting and reconvene immediately following the committee of the whole meeting scheduled for this evening. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Let's take a 5-minute break. Thank you.